Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. Your card is declined. Next customer, please. The words cut through the busy supermarket like a knife. The elderly woman's hands trembled as she clutched her small basket containing just milk and bread. Her eyes, which had seen decades of life struggles, now filled with a quiet desperation that silenced those nearby. The evening rush hour had transformed the local grocery store into a battlefield of impatience. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across tired faces, while the relentless beeping of scanners created a chaotic symphony. In the third checkout lane, time seemed to freeze as the young cashier's voice grew increasingly annoyed. "Ma'am, you're holding up the line. Please step aside." Behind her in the adjacent lane, a tall figure in a gray hoodie shifted uncomfortably. His muscular frame was partially obscured, but there was no hiding the intensity in his eyes as he watched the scene unfold. What happened next would transform an ordinary Tuesday evening into a moment that would be shared across millions of screens worldwide. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. The elderly woman's shoulders slumped as she fumbled with her worn purse. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the store's ambient noise. "I just received my Social Security yesterday." The plastic grocery divider slammed down behind her items, a physical barrier separating her problem from everyone else's convenience. The cashier, his name tag reading Tyler, glanced at the growing line, frustration evident in his tight jaw and narrowed eyes. "Look, ma'am, I've got 20 people waiting. Store policy says I can't hold up the line for payment issues," Tyler said, fingers already reaching for the next customer's items. A few people in line shifted uncomfortably, eyes fixed on their phones or the candy display. Anywhere but the unfolding scene of quiet dignity being stripped away in the fluorescent glare of checkout lane 3. The woman's weathered hands trembled more visibly now as she reached for her meager groceries. "I'm sorry," she murmured, her voice cracking. "These are my essentials for the week." Years of pride prevented her tears from falling, but her eyes glistened under the harsh store lighting. Outside, through the large windows, darkness had settled over the suburban landscape, matching the quiet humiliation unfolding inside. In the next lane, the hooded figure shifted his weight, his jaw clenching beneath his trimmed beard. Dwayne Johnson had stopped by for a simple bottle of water after his workout at the neighborhood gym. He'd chosen this store specifically to avoid attention. No personal security, no entourage, just a man grabbing hydration before heading home. Now, his eyes narrowed as he observed the scene, his massive hands gripping his water bottle tighter, the plastic crackling under the pressure. The elderly woman began gathering her dignity along with her declined card. A lifetime of giving, perhaps as a teacher, nurse, or mother, was reduced to this moment of public insufficiency. The subtle collective sigh of the line behind her carried an unspoken message. "Hurry up, you're inconveniencing us all." Tyler had already scanned 3 items from the next customer, the rhythmic beeping resuming its steady pace. "Next time, make sure your benefits are loaded before holding up everyone," Tyler muttered, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. The comment hung in the air like a slap. An uncomfortable silence followed as the woman clutched her purse to her chest, her small frame seeming to shrink further under the weight of collective impatience. No one spoke up. No one reached for their wallet. No one, except for the man in the gray hoodie who had now stepped out of his lane, water bottle still in hand, his presence suddenly filling the space around checkout lane 3. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. "Excuse me." The deep voice cut through the supermarket's ambient noise like thunder across a clear sky. Heads turned, conversations halted mid-sentence, and the incessant beeping of scanners seemed to fade into the background. Dwayne Johnson pulled his hood back slightly, revealing his distinct features, not for recognition, but for human connection. His focus remained entirely on the elderly woman as he approached. "Ma'am, would you mind if I covered your groceries today?" His tone was gentle, a striking contrast to his imposing physical presence. The woman looked up, confusion crossing her weathered face before recognition slowly dawned in her eyes. The supermarket's fluorescent lights caught the moisture gathering at their corners. "I couldn't possibly," she began, clutching her declined card tighter. Her voice carried the weight of a generation that considered accepting help a personal failure. Meanwhile, phones had begun emerging from pockets throughout the store. The celebrity was instantly recognizable, but it was the humanity of the moment, not his fame, that commanded attention. Tyler the cashier froze, scanner suspended mid-air, his previous irritation dissolving into stunned silence. "I insist," Dwayne said, placing his water bottle on the counter. "And I'd like to add these to the purchase as well." He gestured toward her basket. With deliberate movements, he pulled additional items from nearby shelves: eggs, orange juice, fresh vegetables, adding them beside her milk and bread. Each item placed was a quiet statement against the indignity she had faced moments before. The woman looked at him, really looked at him, not at the celebrity, but at the man. "Why would you do this?" Her question wasn't just about groceries. It reached for something deeper, something about human connection in a world that had grown increasingly disconnected. The store had fallen into a reverent silence, punctuated only by the soft clicks of smartphone cameras capturing the moment. "Because my mom raised me right," Johnson replied, his voice carrying clearly through the now silent store. "And she taught me that what matters isn't what's in your wallet, but what's in here." He tapped his chest. The statement wasn't performed for the growing audience. His eyes remained fixed on the elderly woman as though they were the only two people in the room. Tyler's earlier irritation had transformed into visible discomfort as he stood frozen, scanner still in hand. The woman's weathered hand reached out, hesitantly touching Johnson's forearm. "I was a kindergarten teacher for 43 years, she said, her voice steadier now. "I taught hundreds of children to read, to count, to be kind." The simple statement of her life's work hung in the air, a powerful counterpoint to the earlier dismissal of her worth based on a declined card. "And society repays you with this," Johnson said, gesturing toward the register. It wasn't a whisper, nor was it a shout. It was a statement delivered with the perfect balance of respect and conviction. His eyes flicked toward Tyler, who visibly shrank under the gaze. "You're—" Tyler began, recognition fully dawning on his face. "Just someone who believes that how we treat each other matters," Johnson interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. "Especially how we treat those who gave their lives to shaping the next generation." The words carried no aggression, yet they filled the space with undeniable power. Around them, the audience had grown as shoppers from other aisles gathered, drawn by both the celebrity sighting and the unfolding human drama. Store managers appeared at the edges of the crowd, their faces a mixture of concern and curiosity about the impromptu gathering at checkout lane 3. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk. Johnson turned to face the growing crowd, his presence commanding yet humble. "I'm not trying to create a scene," he said, his voice carrying the same authenticity that had made him beloved beyond his athletic and acting achievements. "But I think we need to talk about what just happened here." The supermarket had fallen into complete silence, the usual beeping of scanners and ambient music suspended in the gravity of the moment. This woman, he continued, gesturing respectfully toward her, was about to walk away hungry because of a system error. Not because she hasn't contributed. 43 years teaching our children tells us otherwise. His eyes swept across the faces in the crowd, making brief but meaningful connections. And not one of us was willing to step up. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, his earlier confidence evaporating under the weight of collective attention. The store manager had emerged from the back office, weaving through the crowd with a mixture of concern and curiosity on his face. Johnson acknowledged him with a slight nod before continuing. "I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here because I believe we're better than what I just witnessed." Outside the store, the parking lot had taken on an almost festive atmosphere. Word had spread quickly, and people gathered respectfully, not to gawk at a celebrity but to witness the conclusion of something meaningful. Johnson carried Margaret's groceries toward her modest car, ignoring the phones recording the moment. "My mother would be proud to meet you," Johnson told her quietly as they walked. "She always said that teachers are the real heroes." Margaret smiled up at him, her earlier humiliation transformed into a moment of grace. "Thank you for seeing me," she said simply. "Sometimes at my age you start to feel invisible." The videos of the encounter would go viral within hours. Not because of the celebrity involved, but because the moment captured something people desperately needed to see. Compassion in action, respect restored, humanity affirmed. In comment sections across social media platforms, people would share their own stories of teachers who had shaped their lives, of small moments of kindness, of the power of seeing others as complete human beings rather than obstacles to efficiency. Johnson reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. "I'm paying for Miss Wilson's groceries today. Not because I'm Dwayne Johnson or because people are watching, but because it's what any of us should do when we can." He handed his card to Tyler, who accepted it with trembling fingers. "And I'd like to pay for a gift card as well, for the next time her benefits are delayed." The magnitude of the moment wasn't lost on anyone present. This wasn't celebrity charity. It was human decency, amplified by someone with the platform to make it visible. "You don't need to do that," Margaret protested softly, dignity returning to her posture. "I know I don't need to," Johnson replied, looking directly into her eyes. "I want to. Because people like you, who gave decades to shaping our future, deserve better than what happened here tonight." He turned to the manager. "And I hope your store might consider some grace period for seniors when these system errors happen. Because the true cost isn't the few dollars of groceries, it's the dignity we strip away in moments like these." The manager nodded solemnly, no longer concerned about public relations damage control, but genuinely moved. "We will implement that change immediately, sir. And, Miss Wilson," he turned to her, "your groceries will always be covered here, system errors or not. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it." As the transaction completed, the supermarket began to return to life. The frozen moment thawed, but something had fundamentally changed. People who had been impatiently waiting in line now offered smiles to Margaret. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, her eyes bright with emotion. "Miss Wilson, you taught my daughter at Lincoln Elementary. She's a teacher now too because of you." The connection rippled through the store, transforming a collection of strangers into a community with shared history. Johnson helped bag the groceries himself, his massive hands carefully placing each item with genuine care. No publicist orchestrated this moment. No cameras had been called in advance. It was authentic humanity on display, powerful precisely because of its simplicity. Tyler, the cashier, worked alongside him in silence, his earlier frustration replaced by thoughtful reflection. The lessons being taught transcended any classroom Margaret had ever led. Outside the store, the parking lot had taken on an almost festive atmosphere. Word had spread quickly, and people gathered respectfully, not to gawk at a celebrity but to witness the conclusion of something meaningful. Johnson carried Margaret's groceries toward her modest car, ignoring the phones recording the moment. "My mother would be proud to meet you," Johnson told her quietly as they walked. "She always said that teachers are the real heroes." Margaret smiled up at him, her earlier humiliation transformed into a moment of grace. "Thank you for seeing me," she said simply. "Sometimes at my age, you start to feel invisible." The videos of the encounter would go viral within hours, not because of the celebrity involved, but because the moment captured something people desperately needed to see: compassion in action, respect restored, humanity affirmed. In comment sections across social media platforms, people would share their own stories of teachers who had shaped their lives, of small moments of kindness, of the power of seeing others as complete human beings rather than obstacles to efficiency. Tyler, the cashier, approached Johnson before he returned to the store. "I want to apologize," he said, genuine remorse evident in his voice. "I was just thinking about getting through my shift, not about who Miss Wilson is as a person." Johnson placed a strong hand on the young man's shoulder. "The measure of a man isn't never making mistakes," he said. "It's what you learn from them. Remember her face the next time someone's card declines." A week later, the supermarket chain announced a new company-wide policy named the Margaret Wilson Rule, a grace period for seniors facing payment issues, and sensitivity training for all staff. Johnson shared the news on his social media not to take credit, but to amplify the impact of that ordinary Tuesday evening when collective humanity was restored in checkout lane 3. What had begun as a moment of public humiliation had transformed into something extraordinary, not because a famous man had intervened, but because his intervention reminded everyone watching that wealth isn't measured by the balance in your account, but by how many lives you've touched. And by that measure, Margaret Wilson was wealthy beyond counting. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.